So for whatever reason, when it came down to actual voting, people didn't say they didn't want a rematch. They said they very much did want a rematch. So I wonder with these polls, people saying they don't want a rematch, and what they're saying is, I don't want the other guy to come back. I don't want a rematch involving Trump or Biden, depending on your perspective. Right. I don't know. The polls said that, but the voters said they want the rematch.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by White House reporter Haisten Willis. Haisten, we've finally reached the big delegate threshold for both major parties. Donald Trump, the former president, and the current president, Joe Biden, have clinched their parties' respective nominations. Sets up this rematch, although everybody says they don't want this rematch to happen, or at least a large majority of people, but this has happened in record time.
Yes, it's official now. They're the two candidates. It's going to be Donald Trump and Joe Biden again. First rematch since 1956, which was Eisenhower and Adlai Stevenson. Mm-hmm. So this has happened before, a rematch. It's been a very long time. That's beyond living memory for the vast majority of people.
Right.
We're looking at a rematch, just like you said. What you said there is interesting about people not wanting it. I've seen these polls too, that all these vast majorities of people say they don't want the rematch. Mm-hmm. And yet, Joe Biden totally dominated. He did have some primary challengers, Marianne Williamson, right. Dean Phillips, got absolutely no traction. Trump dominated almost even more impressively, really. He didn't get the same margins as Joe Biden did, but he wasn't an incumbent, right? This whole thing was supposed to be there was going to be a new person coming in, Ron DeSantis, whoever it was going to be.
Yeah, you had bigger name challengers.
Yes. People that really thought they were going to be, a year ago, DeSantis was supposed to be ascendant and was really going to be, the next guy for the Republican Party. I mean, that did not happen at all. So for whatever reason, when it came down to actual voting, people didn't say they didn't want a rematch. They said they very much did want a rematch. So I wonder with these polls, people saying they don't want a rematch, and what they're saying is, I don't want the other guy to come back. I don't want a rematch involving Trump or Biden, depending on your perspective. Right. I don't know. The polls said that, but the voters said they want the rematch.
So at the moment, the other thing that the polls are saying is that that Trump, the former president, is a little bit ahead of Joe Biden, but the Biden camp has some ideas about how maybe they could counteract that.
Right, Trump is up in all these polls, and it's been very consistent. It's been different kinds of polls, taken by different agencies and things like that, having Trump up in almost all these swing states. So we're going to see what happens here. But we're really starting pretty early here, having the campaign in earnest. They're already, of course, sniping back and forth at each other, releasing things. One thing you and I were talking about earlier was Biden's going very hard on this message that Trump wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. They're sending this stuff out constantly. I'm getting like 3 or 4 emails a day from the DNC, all saying about how Trump is going to cut and threaten Social Security and Medicare. There's a reason they want to get that message out there, which is that it's they call those the third rail of politics, especially Social Security. If you say you're going to cut Social Security, you are not going to win an election. Now, Trump is out here saying, I'm not going to do this. There was a story that was released. There was an exclusive interview with Trump saying how he's not going to touch Social Security, saying this over and over again, but that's not stopping Biden, not stopping the DNC from sending out stuff saying he's going to cut it. So that's one of the, battlegrounds is this messaging battle over who's going to be more protective of those two programs.
Right, and so Trump had attacked some of his Republican primary opponents for saying that they were going to cut Social Security and Medicare, and it was obviously a big theme for Biden and the Democrats in the midterm elections where they exceeded expectations.
Yes. Biden went big on that message. There was a thing put out by Senator Rick Scott. They didn't really say he was going to cut Social Security, so he's going to sunset all federal spending. It's a kind of a budget buster kind of thing. We're going to renew all federal spending every 5 years. Biden said, so you're going to potentially cut Social Security every 5 years. He said that over and over again. Yeah, and they exceed expectations. Nikki Haley, like you were saying, kind of flirted with some stuff about cutting Social Security or raising the retirement age, and Trump attacked her on that. So they're both very much in lockstep now, Trump and Biden, about not cutting Social Security. Interestingly enough, the program is in financial distress. It's heading toward insolvency. There's different groups like the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget is saying, hey, quit saying you're not going to cut it. Say how you're going to actually save this long term. But they're not interested in having that conversation, that kind of nuance.
It's not a very good election year conversation.
No, it's not. So I guess the battle is who can save it the most.
That's right, or which senior citizen is going to end up cutting Social Security and Medicare.
Well, yeah, that's what they're not going to say, right? But there's other things, too. Big thing is they're both going after union voters. There's big Midwestern states that are up for grabs, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, which is not not Midwestern, but Rust Belt.
The industrial states.
Industrial
the Rust Belt
states. Yeah. Those three
Union
states.
heavy, labor heavy, blue collar heavy states.
Yeah. Trump and Biden are both going after these constituencies really hard. Those three states, Trump won in 2016, Biden won them in 2020. They're up for grabs this time. So they're both kind of like outdueling each other, kind of saying who can say the loudest that they love blue collar voters, love manufacturing. Biden just came out saying he's going to oppose the sale of U.S. Steel to a Japanese corporation, which again is a kind of a signal to those people like, I'm going to protect your American jobs. So that's another issue they're going to be duking it out over.
All right, I mean, we've heard Biden call himself Scranton Joe, and Trump has walked around wearing a hard hat, and that's really going to be a theme, I think, this general election.
Definitely. It's interesting because it kind of cuts against recent history of both parties. The Republican Party was very much about free trade until fairly recently, and then Trump kind of got this blue-collar constituency with this stuff about having tariffs on China. Biden, since taking office, has kept most of those tariffs in place and is doing this big America First push, or he calls it Made in America. Trump calls it America First. But again, the messaging is actually very similar between the two.
Thank you, Haisten.
Sure.
You can read Haisten and the rest of our political team's coverage at WashingtonExaminer.com.